make us go live, Avery, that'd be great.
We are live.
So we are live. So welcome everyone to the Committee on Taxation. We have work sessions on 5 bills today. We'll start with introductions and we'll begin with Senator Libby.
My name is Nate Libby, and I proudly represent all of the people of Lewiston in the Maine Senate.
Excellent. And Senator Pouliot, I don't think is with us yet. Representative Bickford.
Good morning, Bruce Bickford. I represent House District 63, which is part of Auburn.
Representative Carmichael.
Good morning, I'm Mickey Carmichael. I represent House District 137, which is 22 communities in Hancock, Washington, and Penobscot counties.
All right, Representative Collins, I don't think is with us yet. Representative Gramlich is, I don't think, going to be with us today.
No.
Representative Hanley.
Yes, good morning. I'm Jeff Hanley. I represent District 87, which is Pittston, Alma, Westcasset, and Randolph.
And Representative Krajicek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Ted Krajicek. I represent District 20, Acton, Lebanon, part of Shapley.
Representative Matlock.
Good morning. I'm Ann Matlack. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Creehaven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
And Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Perry, I represent part of Bangor and part of Orono in the Maine House.
Representative Sachs.
Good morning. My name is Melanie Sachs, and I'm proud to represent House District 48, which is Freeport and part of Pownell.
And Representative Terry.
Good morning. I'm Representative Mo Terry. I represent District 26, the west side of Gorham, and I serve as House Chair.
And I'm Senator Ben Chipman, serve as Senate Chair of the committee, and I represent Senate District 27, which is part of the city of Portland. Also with us today, we have Avery Page, who's our committee clerk, and Julie Jones, who serves as our committee analyst. And today is essentially Marijuana Day in the Taxation Committee. We've got 5 bills that we'll be taking up regarding the issue of marijuana. And just before we get started, I'd just like to say on a kind of a serious note that just got word a couple days ago that Dawson Julia, who's been an activist on the issue of marijuana for a number of years, many of you may know him from the halls of the State House, was involved in a serious accident while they were on vacation. And he's now on life support in a hospital in Florida, and just wanted to ask folks to keep them in their thoughts, regardless of what your thoughts are on marijuana or the bills we take up today, to please keep him in your thoughts. And hopefully he recovers from that, but he's in pretty serious shape right now. So with that, we'll get started, and we'll open up the work sessions on all 5 of these bills at once so we can talk about them together. LD 740, 830, 871, 1185, and 1195. And we'll let Julie bring up the chart and kind of walk us through these bills.
It's on its way. Okay, chart should be up. 3 of these bills, LD 740, LD 1185, and LD 1195, are addressed to the issue of marijuana revenue sharing. And so I'm going to talk about the 3 of those together. The other 2 bills also relate to marijuana, but they're addressing different issues. LD 740 is Representative O'Connell's bill. All of these bills establish a fund to provide a certain percentage of marijuana revenues to go into a fund to be distributed to municipalities which have marijuana establishments within their municipality. LD 740, well, first of all, I should talk about a little bit about the current law. Marijuana currently, adult use marijuana is currently subject to 2 taxes, a sales tax at 10% and an excise tax, which is based upon the volume of the marijuana product being sold. So there are different rates for flower, marijuana flowers than there is for plants, than there is for other types of marijuana that may be sold. And it's based on the weight. It differs for each category. LD, and under current law, 12% of the excise tax revenue goes to something called the Adult Use Public Health and Safety Fund, which is divided up essentially 50-50 between being used for public education with regard to safe use of marijuana and what the laws are, and half goes to for public safety purposes, essentially for education of law enforcement and other related officials with regard to how the laws related to marijuana should be administered. So the three bills that you're looking at today all maintain the 12% going to the Adult Use Public Health and Safety Fund as it is now, but they create an additional fund for the sharing of a percentage of the revenue with municipalities. LD 740 proposes to share 25% of the sales tax and excise tax revenues from marijuana into the revenue sharing fund. The money would then be distributed to municipalities which have marijuana establishments within their municipality. If a municipality has not adopted the allowance of marijuana facilities within their municipality, they would not receive any money from that fund. But municipalities that have would receive a distribution based upon the percentage of revenues that are from facilities within that municipality. So for LD 740, the amount proposed to go to the new revenue sharing fund is 25% of sales tax and excise tax revenues. For LD 1185, it's 12% of excise tax and sales tax revenues. And for LD 1195, it's 5%. There are only very slight, what I'd consider technical language differences between the bills otherwise. Those Representative 1185 is Representative Perry's bill, and LD 1195 is Representative Roberts' bill.
All right, and I guess before we start committee discussion, just wanted to ask Avery if, obviously Representative Perry's with us, but are there other two sponsors of these bills, Representative Roberts or Representative O'Connell in the waiting room? And if so, if you could bring them in case they have any additional information to add.
They're not here.
Okay, all right, great. So committee discussion, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, having served on the Marijuana Legalization Committee, all the retail recreational marijuana just started within the last month or two. And until we have a full year to look back, or at least a full year to look back on it, I'm not prepared to vote in favor of any new marijuana tax incentives or tax issues.
Okay, Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I certainly appreciate where Representative Bickford is coming from. As far as the three bills that want to do some revenue sharing, the 5, the 12, and 25%, I would say it's a matter of just picking any one of those bills. It doesn't have to be mine. I think Representative Roberts and Representative O'Connell have actually presented those bills on behalf of their communities who are wavering on the fence if they want to move forward with it. Maybe going to have a public vote. So I think maybe we should choose one of their bills and maybe decide what the right amount is. I don't know if it's 5, 12, or 25, maybe it's 10%. But I would say one of my concerns with Representative Bickford's approach is once this is well established, it's going to be almost impossible to make changes. Right now, while the revenue's low, we get a chance to make this right. And I think if we're ever going to realize the revenue potential, we need to give some incentives for communities to decide to opt in. Otherwise, that revenue will be going to the black market or other places. So I
Representative.
think this really is our one opportunity to get this right and maximize our potential.
So Representative Hanley. You're on, I think you're on mute, Representative Hanley.
Yeah, are we on now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you, Senator. I also served on the Marijuana Legalization Committee. That committee was in session for a long time and argued about every point of this. These bills undo all of that work. The intention was that these taxes would be put in the pockets they're going to be put in for a good reason. And like I said, we haven't even had a full year's experience under these taxes. And my understanding during the committee hearings that we were going to struggle to even break even. So I think until we know how much this tax is going to bring in and how much it's going to cost for the implementation of all the investigation, the inspections of the facilities, it undoes the intention of that committee. So I won't be supporting any of these bills.
Representative Krajicek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have three towns, two towns, I won't say opted out because I know it'll upset Representative Bickford, have decided not to opt in. And one town has decided to opt in. Now they've written an ordinance and, you know, spent all the money with lawyers and everything else to write this ordinance. And as soon as they finished it and the town voted it in, they discovered that their ordinance was in violation of the law because of court cases from, I believe it was the city of Portland. What's happening here, you know, they believe they're going to be able to buy new fire trucks and they're going to start a police station. They're going to make so much money off of this. This reminds me of when in the 80s, I worked second shift and I come home and they'd have a TV commercial on that you can buy alpacas and you'll get rich. I think we need to see what happens within the first year. And the other thing, I still have the question about constitutionality, where you're going to try and use some of the revenue sharing for only cities that are or towns that are selling marijuana. I still believe that that's unconstitutional under how we give out revenue sharing. So I would be voting against all three of these bills.
Okay, thank you, Representative Krajicek. Before folks speak for a second time and not seeing any of their hands up for folks that haven't spoken a first time, I guess I'd just like to say that I support the idea of some kind of revenue sharing. There clearly are costs, thousands and thousands of dollars of legal costs and other expenses to regulate and do inspections and license these businesses at the municipal level. And I think it's important that we provide some revenue to help cover that. But I think for me, the bigger issue goes back to the heart of like this referendum that was passed by the voters and wanting to shut down the black market and make it a legal, legitimate business in the state that's regulated, that's taxed, where there's a 21 age limit of 21 set on it to try to keep it out of the hands of kids. So it's a regulated adult use market and not providing any revenue. I mean, we know from the bill we heard 2 years ago in this committee, there were cities and towns that were on the fence. We heard from testimony on some of these bills that there are still municipalities on the fence of whether or not they want to allow this. And I think allowing them to have some revenue, a small part of the revenue that comes in from it, would be an incentive for them to allow these businesses in their towns, which will not only go to the heart of helping greatly reduce the black market, which is I think why one of the reasons this referendum was passed by voters, but will also make a really robust market that will bring in more revenue for the state. More businesses open is more revenue for the state. So I support the idea. I don't think we need to pass 2 or 3 of the 3 revenue bills, local revenue bills, but maybe picking one of them. And I would suggest maybe the 5% one, Representative Roberts' bill, would be a reasonable approach. So just put that out there. And we've got hands up from Representative Bickford and Representative Sachs. Go ahead, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say we have wine, we have beer, and we have liquor. Those have an excise tax. Cities and towns don't make a cent off any of those items. What they do get is the state revenue sharing that all retail outlets afford them by the sales taxes raised. So the sales tax on marijuana, they're already going to get a percentage of that based on revenue sharing. And for now, I can't support any of these. Thank you.
Representative Bickford, there's no black market for alcohol that I'm aware of that we're trying to shut down, and we are with marijuana. So I guess that's the big difference.
Well, there's none that we know of. I mean, there could be. You don't know if I have a still in my backyard.
It's true. I'm not sure what you have in your backyard. I've never been there, but go ahead, Representative Sachs.
I don't.
Representative Sachs, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look at this a little bit differently in terms of a policy implication of carving out revenue sharing. The reason that this bill was brought forward was ostensibly to recoup some of the sunk costs of an economic development activity that was felt to be overly onerous. So when communities opted in, they stated that they had sunk costs that were just tremendous. This bill doesn't have any sunset on it. It doesn't have, it is carving out revenue sharing for an economic development activity. I don't agree with that policy at all. There are other economic development activities that other communities do engage in that have ongoing sunk costs in them. I brought up, for example, rail. In my community, costs taxpayers of Freeport $100,000 a year. We get no reimbursement from state or federal folks for that cost for my little community. However, we opted in as an economic development activity. So I just don't believe in the policy of carving out for particular revenue sharing for a particular economic activity. So I will not be supporting any of these bills for those reasons, with huge respect to my colleague from Bangor.
Speaking of which, we'll now hear from Representative Perry, followed by Representative Krasik.
All right, I don't think anyone's minds are going to change on this. This will be my last words, but I do view this much differently than rail. I mean, Bangor has the Cross Insurance Center and all kinds of ways we sink costs into regional projects. I just look at this as, in my lifetime, I can only think of two entirely new industries in the state of Maine that we've had a chance to try and get right from the start: gambling and marijuana. The Gambling Control Board was formed, all the laws were formed, and money was left in the communities as part of it. And I just think if we're, and especially now that you hear that fentanyl is in almost all street drugs, including marijuana, and the success I've seen with this cleaning things up, my original thought was sunk costs and ongoing costs. And I think I was wrong about that. I think the idea is to continue to clean up the industry and maximize the potential of revenue for the entire state and through revenue sharing. So I think we need a little extra push for communities to decide to go forward. And so that's my way of thinking. And so I'll be supporting one of these bills, whichever we can get around.
Go ahead, Representative Krasik, followed by Senator Pouliot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're mistaken. There is a black market in alcohol. If you look at the Maine license plates in New Hampshire liquor stores and all the Massachusetts license plates before they come into Maine for vacationing, they're buying their alcohol in New Hampshire at a cheaper price and not paying the Maine taxes.
Good point. Go ahead, Senator Pouliot.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that Representative Sachs made a number of points that I was going to make. So my reasoning for not supporting this bill is a little bit different, perhaps, than some of my Republican colleagues on the committee. But for those reasons that she so eloquently outlined, I was right on the same track. So I'll be voting on not to pass.
I'm going to actually circle this date on my calendar, just saying.
Yeah. And Representative Perry, you've got your hand up. You have something else to say?
Yeah, I hate to speak a third time, but that comment about the plates from out of state just reminded me Kittery is not opted in. And I believe the numbers say up to 70% of the revenue we collect would be from tourism, from out of state purchases. And it'll be a shame if we can't, if some of the most convenient places to get out of state dollars in this state opt out.
Well, that's a good point, Representative Perry. Kittery hasn't opted in. No. And we heard from I remember, I don't think they spoke on this bill, but 2 years ago, they said they were not sure whether they wanted to opt in because they weren't going to get any revenue and they wanted that bill to pass, which we did pass, and it went to the appropriations table. But I believe there's less than 100 municipalities have opted in out of over 500 municipalities in the state. It's far more than municipalities that have opted into selling liquor and alcohol than have with marijuana. So we've got hands up from several more members. We'll start with, I guess, Senator Pouliot. Did you have something additional to say, or is that from before?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we could funnel the resources from this to get Representative Perry better internet connection, I'd be on board, but otherwise I'm going to have to be out.
Representative Bickford.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say a couple things. One is you can brew your own beer, you can make your own wine for personal use, as you can marijuana. So there's no change there from alcohol. And the other point that I wanted to make is when you do your licensing in your communities, you can't make a profit on the licensing, but all costs incurred to provide that license, you can put into that license. So municipalities are being kept whole through the licensing process currently.
Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize too. My internet is nearly as bad as Joe's today. We have quite a bit of wind here. Representative Kryzak brought up a really good point about New Hampshire and our we'll call it, perhaps maybe this is a way for reciprocity. They do not currently, I think that the plan is to get on board this train. I think if surrounding towns on the border of Maine have a financial incentive to start these businesses, I think that we're in. I think that we'll find ourselves better suited to attract that tourist dollar. So that being said, I'm not a big fan of the giant numbers, which I think potentially giant numbers of two of the bills that we're looking for as far as the revenue sharing part goes, oh, I lost my piece of paper in front of me. I apologize. There we go. Municipality financial incentives. Sorry about that. I prefer a smaller amount closer to revenue sharing. So I think I'd like to make a motion ought to pass on LD 1195 to pass that bill where the number is small. It gives a little bit incentive to municipalities, but it doesn't necessarily break the bank, so to speak. So I'm making a motion ought to pass as amended, of course, 1195 for a fiscal note.
The fiscal note. Okay, so there's a motion made by Representative Terry of ought to pass as amended, with the amendment just being the fiscal note on LD 1195. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Perry. Further discussion, Representative Kryzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, did we get an answer on the constitutionality? I mean, I think we went through this when there was a lot of bills to tax hotels and rental cars for the city of Portland. We weren't able to do that because of the Constitution. And this seems to me to be the same thing where you're going to tax for something and then only give it to the people that are selling that product. So I just like somebody to let us know whether it is constitutional or not.
We do have members of MRS here. Perhaps maybe Mr. Sagas or Julie, you have a thought on that?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any provision in the Constitution that will prohibit the legislature from sharing money with municipalities in whatever formula it wanted to, as long as you had a rational choice for why you were making the distribution in that way. I'm not familiar with the Portland situation that Representative Kryzak is referring to. It may have been a different issue if it was a question of whether the municipality could on its own adopt a tax on particular items. That would be a different issue than with the legislature deciding how it wanted to share money. You already do that in a way with the regular revenue sharing, in that you have revenue sharing 2, for instance, which only goes to certain municipalities. Every municipality receives a portion of revenue sharing 1, but only some municipalities receive a portion of revenue sharing 2. And I think there are probably other examples of revenues that are shared with municipalities, some municipalities, but not all. So I'm not sure what the constitutional issue might be. I can't think of one.
This is just to be clear. I mean, the state would collect the revenue and then would share part of the sales tax revenue with the cities and towns that have marijuana businesses in their towns based on the sales that were done at those locations. So it's very similar to revenue sharing too. Does that clarify for you, Representative Krasik?
Just if I could, what is revenue sharing 2? I've never heard that before.
Revenue sharing 2 is like revenue sharing 1. It's a part of the amount of money that goes into the local government fund. It goes to municipalities with mill rates over 10 mills. So the revenue sharing 1 goes to all municipalities, but the revenue sharing 2 only goes to municipalities whose property tax mill rates exceed 10 mills.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional committee discussion? We have a motion on the table of ought to pass as amended on LD 1195. All those in favor, please signify.
Okay, for those in
Representative
favor of the
Collins.
motion, I have Senator Chipman, Senator Libby, Representative Matlack, Representative Perry, and Representative Terry.
Okay, all those opposed? Representative Collins, you voting for or against?
It's frozen again.
Representative Collins is having trouble with his internet
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
looks like he's frozen.
Avery, will you follow up with him with
Yeah.
the call? Thank you.
Okay, so not sure about Collins, but for those opposed to the motion, I have Senator Pouliot, Representative Sachs, Representative Kryzak, Representative Bickford, Representative Hanley, and Representative Carmichael.
Okay. So you'll follow up with Representative Collins. He just texted me and said his hand was up. I guess he wanted to vote in favor, but his video was frozen. So maybe you can follow up with him, but you have everybody else recorded?
Yep.
Okay, great. So does that
And
pass
can-
or not? We'll have to wait and see. Is it a tie?
Julie.
Go ahead, Julie.
I just want to clarify the persons voting against the ought to pass as amended motion. Their report would be ought not to pass.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll now close the work session on LD 1195. So we still have open work session on the other 4 bills. There's 2 of them that are very similar to 1195. So I don't know if anyone would like to make a motion on one of those at this time. Go ahead, Representative Perry. You're on mute, Representative Perry.
But yeah, I raised my hand before you addressed that we still have those 2 lingering bills. So I guess I'd move on not to pass on my bill, which I think was what, 1190, was mine 1195?
No, we did vote on 1195. Your bill's 1185.
I'll second.
So you move ought not to pass on 1185, Representative Perry?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's seconded by Representative Terry. Any further committee discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the ought not to pass motion on LD 1185, please signify. That appears to be unanimous of all those present. And Representative Collins, I don't know if you can hear us. We're voting on LD 1185.
I'm sorry, my video was going off and on. My hand was up voting on Representative Terry's motion, but as I was raising my hand, the video went out. I don't know if the clerk caught my vote on that. And then I just heard Representative Perry making a motion, and then my video cut out again. So I just switched to my phone in a different place.
We're voting right now on LD 1185. It's a similar bill. Are you voting in favor of ought not to pass with the rest of us, or are you?
Was that Representative Perry's motion? I didn't.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay, I'll vote with that motion then.
Okay, so Representative Collins will be recorded as no, not to pass on this bill. And then the previous bill, just to clarify, you were in favor or not in favor? That's the motion made by Representative Terry.
Yes, my hand was up voting yes on her motion.
Okay.
So you're yes on 1195. Okay, great. That helps. Thank you. So that will conclude the work session on LD 1185. That motion carries. Representative Terry, would you like to make another motion?
Yes, I would. I would like to make a motion ought not to pass on LD 740.
So a motion made by Representative Terry. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Matlack. The motions ought not to pass in LD 740. Any further committee discussion? Do you have your hand up, Senator Pouliot? Do you want to say something or no? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify. So that appears to be unanimous of all those present. So that motion carries. We close the work session on LD 740. So we still have two other bills we're in work session on. LD 677, which is also one of Representative Perry's bills, and LD 871. Any further discussion on either of those bills?
The one you mentioned is LD 677. It's actually LR 677. It's LD 830.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was looking at the LR column. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
LD 830 and LD 871 are the two that we're still working on.
LD 830 proposes to repeal the excise tax on adult use marijuana and to instead increase the sales tax to provide the same amount of money from marijuana. It would require increasing the sales tax from the current 10% to 20%. That's the estimate. We don't know entirely at this point, but that's the estimate of what it would need to be in order to produce the same amount of revenue to the state as is currently provided by the sales tax and excise tax combined.
So it sort of just changes the structure of the tax from having part of it be on excise and part of it be on sales to having it all be on sales. Okay, so there's no increase in revenue from it. It's just changing the way it's structured. We'll let you go, Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just reiterate the reasons for this bill. Looking at Portland, I was shocked when I heard during the public hearing it's $10,000 up front for them to recoup their costs of licensing to get into the business. And then when you have an excise tax, it puts a real burden on the growers. They just want to grow the marijuana and sell it. They have to get a license from the state of Maine, adds a whole new tier of where that money's collected, which increases the cost to the wholesalers by that tax amount. It increases the inventory cost to the retailers by that amount. This eliminates a whole level of taxation. It eliminates the need for putting money up front for people, the little guy who wants to get in the business. It increases revenue sharing to every one of your communities. So it just makes everything simpler, cleaner, easier for the little guy. The only argument I heard really was it's a consistent upfront source of revenue to the state of Maine. I'm a lot less concerned about the money up front to the state versus the cost the business owners up front. So I think it makes sense. I mean, it's just a policy choice we'll have to make, but I really think it's a good idea to go down this route.
Excellent. And Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a lot of discussion in marijuana committee about that. And one of the reasons that we went with the excise tax is sticker shock for the consumer going to the retail establishment. We were afraid that was going to put more of a reason to still see the black market. Was 20%. It's just a visual. It's a bad idea. And again, until we've had a year to look at this, I'm not in favor of any of this.
Representative Kryzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When would the 20% be taxed? Only when they sell to the buyer at the end of the line, or does the grower start
Yeah, it would be
charge
on sales. Be on
Okay, thank you.
sale starting January 1 of next year. It would change. There'd be no more 10% excise tax, and the sales tax would be 20%.
All right, thank you.
Do you have any additional thoughts on that, Representative Terry? I mean, given what Representative Bickford had said about the sticker shock issue, I don't know if that's.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously the prices will come down. That excise tax will come out of the cost of the sticker price, and then the tax, it is, 20% is a shocking tax, but I think people expect that with marijuana. I can tell you about 15 years ago when the state went from $1 to $2 a pack excise tax on cigarettes. At that time, I had a choice of about 5 different wholesalers I could use in my business. Today, I have one, and they're out of state, they're a national company, and they dictate all the prices and terms, and I got nowhere else I can go. And it was that upfront cost to wholesalers, paid upfront an extra $10 per carton on millions of dollars of inventory that can force the consolidation of the rest of the wholesalers. Excise taxes are really tough upfront. It's easier for everyone to just collect the sales tax and remit it at the retail level. So that's I just think it's a good idea. If you agree with me or not, we'll see soon enough.
Go ahead, Senator Libby.
Thank you. In response to the idea that was thrown out around sticker shock for the consumer, I just did a quick calculation with the $2 a pack excise tax on tobacco. That's I understand excise is different than sales, but it's functionally the same as a 33% sales tax on the consumer. So just to give you some sense of what consumers are willing to pay for some of these purchases, I think it's helpful context.
So I mean, on the receipt though, and someone goes and buys recreational marijuana, the receipt will show a sales tax of 20%, right? If this bill passes, and I guess that's maybe what Representative Bickford was talking about, the sticker shock.
That's a fair
Right.
point.
I mean, it's definitely a consideration. I definitely hear where Representative Bickford's coming from. I mean, I think I'll still be supportive of the bill, but I think there is, maybe something to that. But I think overall, it probably makes sense to take the excise tax off the wholesale. But Representative Terry.
I just wanted to note, Julie sent us yesterday a list of what other states do as far as taxing their marijuana sales. And I think Colorado, who has a $251 million state revenue from their cannabis industry. And I'm not saying that we're anywhere close to that at this point, but it looks to me, as far as sticker shock goes, they have a 15% retail tax, and then they can, on top of that, do a local option of 8%. So I would imagine in some places the 20% would be welcome that we're putting out there right now. So I know that the committee, when doing their work, looked at a lot of other states and what they were doing as well. But again, it's a new and developing industry, so I think we can make the most of it. By looking at what other states are doing. Now that we've jumped in. But just as far as sticker shock goes, I think that most consumers are aware that this is a revenue driven industry for states, because it's still not legal on the federal level. So most states that are doing this for the revenue as well as other things. But I think that that's where the buy-in is. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there in the conversation.
We've got hands up from Representative Sachs, followed by Representative Kryzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could ask, I just wanted to determine, I'm inclined to support this particular bill because if I remember Representative Perry, and you can refresh my memory if this wasn't true from the work session, but the bulk of the sales right now are from out-of-state purchasers. And one of the reasons to think about this policy shift is because it helps encourage small Maine businesses and cultivators to continue or expand or get into the business, whereas the revenue from this increased sales tax on that side was generated mostly by out-of-state purchasers. So there seem to be some positive policy implications. Plus, I do like that, I have to admit, I like the change in state revenue sharing. But from a policy point of view, it's trying to help the little guy in the cultivation side who have to do these huge, enormous costs, whereas the sales tax would mostly be targeted, at least in the current market, to generated from out-of-state purchasers. Did I remember that correctly from the work session?
Yeah, I think so.
You want to respond, Representative Perry, or?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't give a citation in front of me of how much is exported, but it's significant. Of course, that excise tax would be exported as well. It's just the cost, like my store got robbed a while ago. Well, they didn't rob me of any sales tax, right? But they went for vaping and cigarette stuff. So they robbed me of the excise tax that was tied up, hundreds of dollars of excise tax tied up in that inventory. I have thousands of dollars of excise tax tied up in my inventory, as well as the wholesalers. When recreational first started, there was a real problem with growers getting their excise tax license in time to get product into the recreational use. So it's extra work for Maine revenue, extra work for growers. That's not their expertise. It's extra money tied up in inventory for the wholesalers, extra money tied up in inventory for the retailers. And it's no revenue sharing for any of you on that excise tax. I just feel like the sales tax, we collect it at the time of sale and remit it the following month to the state of Maine.
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate that clarification.
The state gets the money, you all get a cut of it. It takes those inventory costs out. It makes it easier for the little guy to get in. I just think it's good policy.
Representative Kryzak, followed by Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have any idea of the difference in price from the black market and what it's going to actually cost now with us having it legal and taxing it? Is the product still going to come out cheaper by buying it in the store than from buying it on the black market?
Does anybody have an answer for that? Do you know anything about that, Julie?
I thought it might have
I
come
do
up in
not.
the marijuana committee.
Okay. Representative Bickford, maybe you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that, but I just want to clarify something. It was brought up about the growers being impacted severely by this excise tax. They don't pay the excise tax. They collect the excise tax. So let's make that clear. The growers do not pay excise tax.
So the excise tax is paid by the retail stores, buy it from the
By
growers?
the wholesaler or the retailer. At cultivation is where it's paid, I believe, if I remember correctly. But the growers do not pay excise tax. They collect it.
They collect it. Okay. Go ahead, Representative Perry.
Well, they collect it when they sell it and they remit it to the state.
Correct.
So that revenue's collected up
Correct.
front, and that revenue, that cost of that excise tax ends up in everyone's inventory costs from the wholesaler to the retailer. And it's just one more. I mean, the retailers are all set up to collect the sales tax, right? There's no extra administration. We're collecting it anyhow. This adds a whole new collection license and a whole new tier of collecting revenue and putting those costs up front. That's just not necessary in my view.
So I guess my question would be, should we do that with tobacco now too? Just change the sales tax to 20%? and get
Well-
rid of the excise tax?
I mean, that's a possibility, but I mean, there's no interstate marijuana. It's all here in the state of Maine. You know, these excise, a lot of the taxes are collected, by Philip Morris, a worldwide company. But it is, if that were the case, I bet I would have an option of 2 or 3 or 4 wholesalers to choose from, and everything would be better for me if it was all on sales tax rather on the excise tax that's collected at the wholesale level.
Any additional committee discussion? We just got a couple questions, Julie. I haven't not had a chance to look back at the testimony. I can't remember now. Where did the marijuana retail folks that are involved in that, were they supportive of this from the hearing? Do you know, or are you aware of where they stand in terms of the folks that are running the retail stores? Do they testify or?
I don't recall. I would have to go back through my notes. I don't ordinarily keep track of who's testifying for and against. So I would have to look.
I'll look.
The other, just to clarify, so making this change would put more money into revenue sharing, which would, in a sense, get some additional revenue back to cities and towns.
Yes, the sales tax, increasing the sales tax revenue, 5% of that amount would be going to the local government fund for revenue sharing.
And then the excise tax, that doesn't go into revenue sharing. So that's
That's right.
current situation is less money going into revenue sharing, and this bill would put more money in. Okay, great.
Yes.
Representative Perry.
Yeah, just for that question you asked a minute ago, Senator, I put this bill in on behalf of the marijuana industry, the growers, the wholesalers, and the retailers. So I think everyone that I've dealt with on every level feel like it'd be a much cleaner way to do things. So that's where the bill came from.
Okay, great. Excellent. Well, any additional committee discussion? So do we have a motion on this bill? I don't remember if someone made a motion or not, but Representative Sachs.
I'd like to make a motion ought to pass. And if there's a fiscal note to it, which I didn't see before, you can say as amended. Julie's nodding. I will go with Ms. Jones on that. Ought to pass as amended, please.
Okay, so we have a motion not to pass as amended, seconded by Representative Matlack, the motion made by Representative Sachs. Any further committee discussion? So we're about to, we'll now take a vote on LD 830. Ought to pass as amended, please signify. Okay, all those opposed? All right, so you have everything you need, Avery?
Yeah, I'm just going to read out loud to confirm for those in favor of the ought to pass as amended motion. I have Senator Chipman, Senator Libby, Representative Terry, Representative Collings, Representative Matlack, Representative Perry, Representative Sachs, and Representative Kryzak, Representative Carmichael. For those opposed to the motion, I have Senator Pouliot, Representative Bickford, and Representative Hanley.
All right, so that motion carries.
And-
We'll close the work session on LD 830. Go ahead, Julie.
To clarify, those voting against the motion are ought not to pass.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll now, we're still in work session on LD 871. It's our final bill for today. Any further committee discussion on that bill? Go ahead, Representative.
I'm sorry. LD 871 is a bill submitted by the Department of Administrative and Financial Services to make some clarifications and to assist in their being able to administer the bill. I believe Ms. Trundy is here in the attendees who would be able to, or Mr. Allen, to answer your questions with regard to this. But it would make, it would add definitions of wet marijuana flowers and marijuana wet marijuana trim it would remove language saying per pound or fraction thereof for the excise tax application to mature marijuana plants, and would instead impose an excise tax on the number of plants sold rather than the weight. And it would require a cultivation facility to calculate the taxable weight by reducing the total weight of wet marijuana flower or wet marijuana trim. I will confess to knowing nothing about marijuana. So I would definitely defer to the department and those members of the committee who have a lot of previous experience with the marijuana legalization committee.
All right, excellent. So I see Ms. Trundy is with us from the department. Would you like to offer some additional information, Ms. Trundy?
I don't really have any additional information, but just to kind of restate the purpose for this bill, we became aware shortly before we launched the adult use marijuana industry that it was a growing practice for cultivators to be immediately flash freezing their product before moving it into the market. And so, but the excise tax rate that is in law is based upon a dry weight. And so if you're charging an excise tax and factoring in that water content, it ends up being a completely cost prohibitive excise tax on that wet product. So the purpose of the bill was just to create parity between the wet and dry weight marijuana, factoring in what the water content is of marijuana typically.
Just to clarify, this is the bill the department asked to be submitted, and Representative Terry sponsored it for the department.
Yes, that's true. We did emergency rulemaking back in late August, early September of last year, so that the conversion rate would be in effect when the industry launched. And so this is kind of a housekeeping bill before that rulemaking expires.
Okay, great. Representative Bickford, followed by Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. My question is, with the marijuana plant, you have your buds and you have your stalks and you have your leaves, and there's not a piece of that marijuana plant that is not used. So, and plants vary in size. I mean, you can get a plant, my understanding is some plants you can get 1.5 pounds of marijuana out of, and some you might get less than 1 pound. So with a per plant basis, I'm a little bit confused. Can you explain that a little bit better to me?
Yeah, we did propose a per plant excise tax in the bill. And the purpose behind it was the difficulty of calculating what the weight of a marijuana plant would be when you start factoring in stock, root ball, growing material, that sort of thing, which are all part of what is being transferred with the plant. And the fact that then they're going to, then primarily it's going to be flower and trim that is taken off of the plant.
So what would have you got a cost that you've decided would be per plant excise tax?
Yes, the per plant rate in the bill is $35 per plant, per mature marijuana plant. And we do recognize that plant size does vary. And so the amount of product that you're going to get off of a plant would vary. This is also though, the transfer of plant was something that we anticipated being utilized at the outset of the industry, and then not so much once the adult use industry's cultivation, its own cultivation was up and running, because it's just not as appealing as sourcing it otherwise.
Okay, and finally, if I can, Mr. Chair, finally, are you going to get the goal of 10% value out of the excise tax as you do with sales tax. That was our original idea in marijuana committee, was we wanted to average about 10% on excise tax and 10% sales tax.
Representative, are you asking that with regard to the per plant price? Are
Yeah.
you asking that?
Yes.
I am not sure that it would equal 10%, but I will say it was not something that was taken into account when the fiscal impact was originally calculated, this transfer of whole marijuana plants. And so it wouldn't have a fiscal impact on what we expect to, or the revenue that has been projected, I guess is the way I would say that. And we don't anticipate that this is going to be a significant practice.
So this is just on
at this point in
transfer?
time, it may not even be something that that many people are going to use. It was really intended for the transfer of product from the medical marijuana program to the adult use program.
Oh, okay, so I misunderstood. This is just a transfer of product. Okay, I can support that. Thank you.
Yep.
Representative Perry.
Just another problem with the excise tax. I mean, if we pass the last bill, this point becomes kind of moot, but since I think the outcome of the last bill might be in doubt, I think this is something we can all agree just needs to be done, that we can't tax by weight on wet plants. And so I'd actually, well, it's my bill. I'm not going to move it to pass, but this one seems pretty straightforward.
Representative Terry.
I will make a motion ought to pass LD 871.
And I'll second.
Great. My experience with food waste screams out at me when I read this bill. I think I had mentioned in the public hearing that it's really hard for restaurants to purchase frozen fish for the exact same reason. That water weight is just something you will never get back, ever, ever, ever. And I appreciate the fact that the industry is, using good practices to serve themselves and to serve others as well. So again, I make a motion ought to pass LD 871.
All right, so we have a motion ought to pass made by Representative Terry, seconded by Representative Bickford. Do we need an amendment for a fiscal note or not on this? Julie says yes. So
Yes.
Is that okay? Amendment for fiscal note?
Absolutely.
Further committee discussion, Representative Krasik.
Oh, no, I was voting.
Oh, okay. Seeing no further committee discussion, all those in favor, please signify. Representative Carmichael,
There we go.
he's with us. Okay, great. So it appears to be unanimous of all those present. So we'll now close the work session on LD 871. So that concludes our work sessions for today. And did you have some amendments to review with us, Julie? I think you emailed something out.
Yes, quite a few actually. Okay, let's see if I can bring these up one at a time. Okay. First one, these are in no particular order except the order of my files sitting on my desk. LD 1062 is an act to phase out the insurance premium tax on annuities. This bill phases out the insurance premium tax on annuities over 10 years. The vote in committee was divided, ought to pass, amended, ought not to pass. The amendment was fiscal note only. And this amendment is reflecting the fiscal note Maine Revenue Services requires an appropriation of $33,000 for computer programming costs. And the fiscal note indicates the projected impact upon revenues because it increases, because the tax is phased out over 10 years, the amount goes up each year over those 10 years. So you can see in the first year, it would be $303,000 going up to, in the fourth year, we only project that far out, $1,970,000. So that's the amendment on LD 1062.
Any concerns from the committee? Questions? Seeing none, I think everybody's okay with that.
Okay, the next one I have is LD 201. Gotta make sure I bring up the right one here. I've got a whole lot of them sitting in waiting. 6583, 6583, that one. When I'm sharing things, I have a choice of all of the things I could potentially share, and all of the amendments look alike because they're in little tiny boxes, so I have to make sure I get the right one. LD 201 is the bill relating to the historic rehabilitation credit that the bill proposes to extend the date from currently the credit applies to historic rehabilitation projects were approved through August 1st of 2025. The bill proposed to extend that date to 2040. The committee amendment extends the date to 2030 rather than to 2040. And so you can see that this amendment is changing the date. It's from 2025 to 2030. It's also adding in language relating to the report that is made by the Housing Authority to the legislature. Fiscal note. No administrative costs to Maine Revenue Services. A fiscal note which indicates that because it's extending the date, it's outside of the 4-year period that we project when there would be additional projects coming online that would be eligible for the credit. But the estimate is that when the extension is implemented and the new projects come online, that the cost to the general fund would be about $9.5 million.
All right. Any concerns or questions about that? Senator Libby.
Do you recall, will the bill with a fiscal note like this be sent to the table?
My recollection is that it will go to the table. Essentially, any bill with a fiscal note, even if it's outside of the biennium, goes to the table. When the Appropriations Committee is looking at those bills, it's not going to affect the current budget, so that they will look at the bill with that in mind. But I believe that it will go to the table.
Thank you.
All right. Any other committee concerns or questions? Seeing none, I guess we'll move on to the next one.
Next one is LD 401, which is this one. LD 401 is an act to provide the sales and use tax exemption for certain nonprofit cemeteries. In this one, there's one language change. The bill had referred to an incorporated nonprofit cemetery, but the ought to pass motion and issues were raised about the potential ambiguity in that term or non-inclusiveness of that term, of them having to be incorporated under the Internal Revenue Code. The term that is used for income tax exemptions is a cemetery company. So what this amendment does is to insert that term cemetery company as defined under the Internal Revenue Code in place of incorporated nonprofit cemetery. It would not reduce, it would not shrink the application. It would probably extend it to some things that might not be included in the term incorporated nonprofit. They would all be nonprofit under the Internal Revenue Code, but they wouldn't have to be incorporated. There are many old cemetery, especially small local cemetery organizations that are not incorporated, but they are nonprofit and operate cemeteries. And the bill provides an appropriation to Maine Revenue Services for, again, for computer programming costs. I'm not sure why this one is not a multiple of 11, but it's not. It's $5,000 to create a new sales tax exemption certificate. And fiscal note indicates that the revenue impact is a little bit higher in the first year because of that $5,000 administrative one-time appropriation for computer costs. But in subsequent years, the estimated revenue impact is $5,700.
Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Julie, if I remember correctly, this was for primarily a veteran cemeteries. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, there already is an exemption for the Maine Veterans Cemetery. So this would apply to other cemeteries.
Yep, that's right. Sorry. Thank you. Thanks for the memory refresh.
Any additional concerns or questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next amendment. Oh, Senator Libby, do you have something?
Sorry, Sarah Shipman. I wondered if MRS or DAFs are still with us. I'm curious on these $5,000 fiscal notes for computer programming. Is that an internal transaction with the IT department, or are they hiring a contractor? You know, where does that money go, I guess?
Just promoted Ms. Methot. She may be able to answer that question for us.
Yes, if Ms. Methot could answer that, would be great.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi. That is a cost through IT, but it includes programming, it includes testing, it includes getting the actual information into our system. So we don't hire a contractor to do it. That's your question.
That was the question. Thank you for the answer.
Is that why, sorry, may I ask a question? Is that why this one perhaps is less than some of our other ones that we see?
The $11,000 line amount is to put a line on a return.
Oh.
We won't be putting a line on a return for this one. We'll be creating a new exemption certificate for somebody. So that's the difference. It's the $11,000 figure is to put a line on an actual return.
Got it. Thank you.
I guess we're all set on this amendment. Do you have more for us, Julie?
Yes, LD 23, which is X582. No. Well, I seem to have lost that one.
Increase the income tax deduction for contributions to education savings plans.
Yes, I'm trying to find it to share with you, and I'm not finding it. But it is a bill, as you mentioned. The only change in the amendment was to change the tax year that would first apply to. Oops,
I
It's
just
up.
shared it. I just shared
How
it.
did you find it?
You sent it to us yesterday.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The only change in this bill is to change the tax years that it applies to. The original bill was drafted saying for tax years beginning January 1st, 2021. This changes it to say 2022 instead of 2021, simply because so that it would not be retroactive to the 2021 year. And the only other features are the appropriation for the $22,000 to Maine Revenue Services. As Ms. Method explained, because this is requiring a new line on the income tax form and the related computer changes that would need to be made in the Maine Revenue Services system. Going down to the fiscal impact, I have the luxury of having it on paper. The estimated cost in the first year is about $1 million and about the same, although very slightly for the next 2 years for the subsequent biennium as well, in terms of what the revenue loss would be from reinstituting this deduction for contributions to college savings accounts.
Any concerns or questions? Seeing none, I think we're all set with that.
I do have one other thing to bring to your attention. It relates to the amendment on LD 351, which you have reviewed previously. At LD 351 is an act regarding municipal valuation and state-owned property. This was a minority ought to pass amended vote. The majority was ought not to pass. And Representative Carmichael was the person on the ought to pass as amended. And this came to you for review last week, I believe. And at that point, Representative Carmichael needed some time to look at the amendment and make sure that that he was okay with it. And I have since received an email from him. I don't know if he's still here, but the email saying that he was okay with that to go ahead. So you have seen it before. It changes, the original bill would have required the state to make payments to municipalities of property taxes. And this bill provides instead that there would be a payment in lieu of taxes in a similar amount. So it would remove the difficulties of the original bill of municipalities taxing the state for property. And then what happens if the state doesn't pay? Would there be a lien and foreclosure? It takes away all of those things by substituting a requirement that the state make a payment to the municipalities rather than pay taxes to the municipalities. I just wanted to share that with you so you know that it was ready to move along its way now.
All right, any concerns or questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I guess everybody's okay with that. So do you have anything else for us, Julie, or is that it?
No, I could remind you about the Government Oversight Committee tomorrow, but I've already done that, so I won't. And wish you a happy Earth Day.
Yeah, it's Earth Day today, so excellent. Anything else? Anybody else want to bring up? You have anything else, Representative Terry?
I'm all set.
Okay, I guess that wraps up our work for the. Go ahead, Representative Krajicek.
Yeah, just a quick question. I see on the calendar that we're going to meet next Thursday. So is the plan that we're going to have a morning session on Thursday and then do taxation in the afternoon, or are we just going to have session on Wednesday? I just trying to plan my week out.
Well, we still have taxation. We have work sessions at 9 o'clock Tuesday and Thursday morning, and then we have some public hearings in the afternoon on Tuesday and Thursday as well.
So we're only going to be on session on Wednesday then, is that correct?
Right. We're just going to be in session at the Civic Center on Wednesday. So we'll
Okay,
still
thank
have
you.
committee at 9 o'clock at the normal time, Tuesday and Thursday. Obviously, we won't meet Wednesday because we'll be in session in Augusta. But we've added some public hearings Tuesday and Thursday afternoon to try to catch up a little bit because we have a lot of work left to do. And we've talked about having some possibly some work sessions on Friday morning since we're losing Wednesday, to try to have some work sessions on a few bills Friday morning so we can get some more bills voted out of the committee. there's several bills we've tabled, so maybe we're taking up some of the tabled bills or something on Friday morning, but we haven't really determined which bills yet, but just wanted to throw that out to folks and hope that folks can be available Friday morning so we can take up some more bills and get some bills voted out. Any additional committee discussion? Seeing none, I guess that wraps up our work for today. Just want to remind everyone to please keep Dawson Julia in your thoughts and hope for a speedy recovery for him. And we will see everybody on Tuesday.